easily. It's going to take more than what I've seen for me to be over this.
Plus, like, you've played Death and Taxes, so you probably love this deck too, or at least kind of like it. He's playing against Phimus Pan, who is a player from the Phoenix, Arizona area, good friends with Adam Prozac. Used to play a lot of Versus System, if you're familiar with that card game, who is playing Bug Control. How does this bug deck differ? You've got Trini Nemesis, you've got Deathrite Shaman, Baleful Strix, and Dillian Click. Sometimes you look for Shardless Agent along with Ancestral Visions, but that's not here. So then you try to look for Delver of Secrets and some of those tools. That's not here. So it's really just a different take on bug. Yeah, this is a kind of an odd list, but a spicy one, and one that has worked out so far. Inquisition of Kozilek is going to reveal a hand of Mother of Runes, a Brimaz, a whole bunch of lands. You got a Plains of Karakas, a Horizon Canopy, and a Rishadan Port. Rietzl played a Mother of Runes on turn 1. So, if Phimus can answer that Mother of Runes in play, then I suspect he's going to want to snipe the one in hand. But if he can't, and I would guess that he can't, then I think the ship of killing your opponent's creatures has sailed, and he's just going to want to snipe the threat in the form of Brimaz. Now, the removal in Phimus' deck, he has 3 copies of Abrupt Decay, he has a Maelstrom Pulse, 2 Dismembers, and that's it. So a free spell like a Snuff Out's not here. We do see players play Disfigure on occasion. That's not here either. He does have 2 Dismember. Yes. So if he had Dismember, he would have definitely killed that Mother of Runes, but he does not. And it looks like Spirit of the Labyrinth, the draw for Paul. And that is a one-of. That's a card that there's no consensus on what the correct number of that card is in Death and Taxes. First week it was legal. I tried playing all 4. 4 was too many. Paul just has 1, and I'm willing to believe that that is a good number. Any reason that 4's too many? Like just because it's not a good attacker, bad in multiple copies? It doesn't do anything against certain decks. Okay. Against the decks where it's good, it's very good. Okay. But it kind of has the Phyrexian Revoker problem. Okay. Where you play it, you turn off a thing, and then later they get rid of it, and then that thing, which was sitting there the whole time, is now on again. Sure. That ends up being the thing that likely kills you. Yes. So Phimus is going to sacrifice 2 fetch lands here. He's going to go down to 18 as he gets a Tropical Island and Underground Sea. Now, the cards that Spirit of Labyrinth actually going to shut off here. Now, Phimus does have 3 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor in his deck, along with 4 copies of Brainstorm. So those are both pretty good hits. Yeah, for sure. Honestly, one of the most frustrating things about playing with Spirit of the Labyrinth, it's an enchantment. I did not think about this that much when I registered it, but I have grown so many of my opponent's Tarmogoyfs with this card. It can be infuriating. I suppose I forgot about that. Here's a True Name Nemesis. This is a difficult card for Death and Taxes to beat. I know that you've actually kind of written an article about True Nemesis being a bit of an issue for you. It is. It is an issue for Death and Taxes. I tried splashing black just for Zealous Persecution to answer this card with mixed success. Paul does not have a way to get this card off of the board once it's here. Not in the main deck. He has the 1 Ratchet Bomb on his board. So basically, once True Name Nemesis arrives, all Paul can do is work around it somehow. He can attack through it, as he just did, by giving his creature protection from blue. If he has flyers, that'll work. But he has to race True Name Nemesis. Well, that's what he's going to try to do, as you mentioned. Mother of Runes tapping the main phase, giving Spirit of the Labyrinth protection from blue, get through True Name Nemesis. That puts Phimus down to 15. Then Paul follows with second main phase, plays another copy of Mother of Runes, plays Karakas. Port's going to tap down the only green source that Phimus currently has, but he plays a Verdant Catacombs, so definitely has a backup one. The problem here for Phimus is that he has a Brainstorm in his hand that's really not doing very much. No. Interesting threat selection for Phimus, actually. I mentioned Tarmogoyf growing due to Spirit of Labyrinth. Phimus doesn't have any. Yeah, I mean, this is a very different take on Bug. It is. We see the full 4 True Name Nemesis. Phimus not messing around. He wants to play the best card. 4 Deathrite Shaman, 3 Baleful Strix, and 1 Vendilion Click. Baleful Strix, also a weird selection. Yeah. I mean, there are so many different takes that you can, there's so many different takes you can have on the deck, excuse me. You see a Seraph Venture's going to join the table here. Probably see Rietzl use a Port in a moment, but there's a lot of different takes you can take on Bug. Again, we've seen Bug Delver do really well. That deck has, as you mentioned, Tarmogoyf, Delver of Secrets, Tombstalker. We see Shardless Bug with Shardless Agent, Baleful Strix. You've got Ancestral Visions. Doesn't have a card like Delver because it doesn't want to hit it with Shardless Agent. Going a little bit bigger, sometimes even to Planeswalkers. And then you see this version, which is kind of a mishmash of both decks, but not really. Even though it still has some pretty good cards. Yeah, those Baleful Strixes are actually going to be pretty useful here should he find one. He won't get to draw a card as long as that Spirit of Labyrinth is in play, but he will have an answer to Sarah Avenger. As I mentioned, Paul is trying to get over and under and around True Name Nemesis any way he can. Sarah Avenger is a good way to do that.
One of the things I always find quite interesting about the Death and Taxes deck, and I'm definitely guilty of this, is just unrelenting mocking of Mother of Runes. Because it's just, I mean, we're playing Legacy with decks that can kill you on turn 1, as Phimus is conceding now on like turn 5 against Death and Taxes in the face of Mother of Runes, making it so that True Nemesis can't actually block anything. But I mean, Mother of Runes is one of the best one-drops of all time, and even though we laugh about this, you know, one-mana white creature in a format like Legacy where there's Force of Wills and Charbelchers killing people on turn 1 and Empty the Warrens and things of that nature, it's just a really good card.
Oh, yeah. Mother of Runes is infuriating to play against. It comes down turn 1. If you can solve it on turn 1, you get to continue to play Magic. But if you don't solve it on turn 1, an entire subset of your cards, often a fairly substantial subset of the cards in your deck, just turned off, done, gone. And that's just talking about the removal. Mother of Runes also just causes all sorts of trouble when it comes to blocking. As we saw there, Paul used it to force his creatures through. It can make attacks look very poor. It just does it all. At the cost of 1 mana.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, if you don't kill it right away, it just shuts off a ton of cards. And on the flip side, if they do kill it right away, it's like, all right, you killed Mother of Runes. That's fine. I have other things to do. So it's a rock and a hard place type card. As we look at the sideboards here, you see the players are doing that. We're going to start on Phimus' side. I have that in front of me. I'm looking at, I'm going to get to that one in just a second. 2 Hymnothorax, a Force of Will, a Surgical Extraction, a Grafdigger's Cage, 2 copies of Golgari Charm, a Marsh Casualties, 3 Spell Pierce, 2 Phyrexian Revoker, an Umezawa's Jitte, and a Dread of Night. Dread of Night is coming in. March Casualties is coming in. Golgari Charms are coming in. So that's 4 cards. If you're not familiar with Dread of Night, 1 black enchantment, white creatures get -1/-1. That's a really good Magic card against Death and Taxes. The other cards I think you can argue, you know, a card like him, a card like the Umezawa's Jitte, Revoker, because there are definitely some things that are worth stopping here. But the 4 cards are very obvious.
Yeah, for sure. The 4, I would add the 5th, the Umezawa's Jitte. Basically anything that gives creatures -1/-1 is incredible against Death and Taxes. Death and Taxes is full of very powerful, disruptive creatures that happen to have 1 toughness. So yeah, he's definitely going to bring in, as you said, 1 Dread, 2 Charm, the 1 Marsh Casualties, which is not a card we've seen a ton of. Here, I think he's playing it because it does not target and therefore can kill an opposing True Name Nemesis.
Correct. It does not kill your own.
Exactly.
Which is important.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty sweet little piece of tech there. So he's going to bring in those 5 of the remaining spells in his board. I would bring in Phyrexian Revoker if I were Phimus.
What are we naming?
We can name Mother of Runes. If that's not an issue, we can name Aether Vial. If neither of those are issues, we can name various equipment.
So a lot of targets, even though it's a fragile body, but you know, getting the job done is what Revoker does. Now, you've got a Rietzl sideboard in front of you, and since you do have experience playing Death and Taxes, fire away.
Okay, so Paul Rietzl has access to 1 Pithing Needle, 2 Rest in Peace, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Menriki Gusari, 2 Oblivion Ring, 1 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Cataclysm, 2 Aethersworn Canonist, 2 Wiltleaf Liege, and 1 Mirren Crusader. Now, this is a weird spot for Paul, because Paul has seen some bug cards. He actually has a lot of good cards against bug, you know, broadly, but many of them are not actually that effective against Phimus' particular build. Rest in Peace is a card that I have not minded to bring in against any deck that I think has Tarmogoyf, Deathrite Shaman, and at least one other thing, you know, whether it be Tombstalker, Snapcaster Mage, something like that. We know that Phimus has the 4 Deathrite Shaman and not really anything else. So Rest in Peace, Paul might want to bring that in. It's actually not that good, but Paul doesn't know that. Paul has access to Wiltleaf Liege. That's a big card against you know, Liliana and Hymn to Turok, obviously, for being able to sneak it into play against discard. It's actually also the +1/+1 effect is huge when you can reasonably expect people to be bringing in -1/-1 effects.
Dread of Night.
Dread of Night. Sure, yeah. Like there are so many that you have to worry about. Engineered Plague is a big one that Phimus actually doesn't have. But he certainly has some. So Wiltleaf Liege is going to be very big there. Definitely expect him to bring in those 2. He saw True Name Nemesis, so he's definitely going to go to his 1 Ratchet Bomb to solve that problem. I would expect him to bring in 1 Mirror Crusader, 1 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Wiltleaf Liege for sure. The rest, again, it's kind of a judgment call on Paul's part. He has the 1 Menriki Gusari. I think when you see True Name Nemesis, you have to assume that there is equipment to follow. So that's a reasonable card to bring in. The 2 Oblivion Rings, it's a good catch-all in this matchup. It would get Liliana. It gets you know, big threats that run out of control, like Tombstalker sometimes. It can answer equipment that goes on True Name Nemesis. It's a good hedge, although it is a little vulnerable against a deck that you kind of have to expect has Abrupt Decay.
You used the word hedge there, and I think that's the appropriate word to use, because if you take a look at the cards that Paul saw that game, True Name Nemesis, like a Brainstorm and an Inquisition of Kozilek, and basically nothing else.
Yeah.
So as a result, again, because Bug has there are a wide range of Bug decks that people are playing right now. We know that Bug Delver is like arguably the best Bug deck. It's been winning a lot, both in Grand Prix and on the Open Series. But I mean, we see arguments to be had about should you play True Name Nemesis in Bug or not play True Name Nemesis. Now, obviously, he saw one, so he knows that Phimus is playing one. But there's this wide range of cards. You can play Shardless Bug, this version of Bug, Planeswalker Heavy Bug. Who knows? This version is completely different. So Paul's going to, I think, sideboard pretty delicately here and going to be doing a lot of hedging, as you did mention.
Yeah. The Wiltleaf Lieges, those are just a grand slam.
Yeah.
No matter what flavor of Bug we're looking at, we know that post-board he's going to be attacking your X1 creatures somehow.
Sure.
And when he's not doing that, he is likely to be trying to get you to discard cards. Some Bug players kind of predict the Wiltleaf Liege. You might see him actually board him out because of that. Liliana as well, not even that great.
Yeah, I can't imagine that card's insane against Death and Taxes. I'm sure it's fine, and there are situations where it's great, so we're going to leave this game with the Thoughtseize. But it doesn't seem like Liliana would be insane. You see Rietzl's going to lay out his hand here. He's on... That's not a lot of cards.
No.
It's 5 cards. You see a Swords, a Thalia, and then 2 Plains and a Wasteland.
So Phimus doesn't have a lot to choose from here. I would expect him to snipe that Thalia, yeah. Of Phimus's creatures, 3 of them replace themselves in the form of Baleful Strix, and 4 can't be targeted by Swords to Plowshares anyway. So Swords actually pretty bad against Phimus's particular build of Bug, but it's not a card you can board out. Again, as we've said, Bug decks can have very good targets for Swords to Plowshares.
Paul aggressively wastelanding here. So this is always a really interesting question to me. When you mulligan to 5, or just mulligan in general, and he's on the draw, he could have just played a turn 1 Aether Vial, and he chose not to. He's going to play it now on turn 3 because that was his draw for the turn, but he just decided to aggressively wasteland. And maybe he's thinking, well, I'm in a bad position anyway, so I might as well just wasteland and hope for the best?
Most likely. Actually, the real point to consider there, Aether Vial, even if it starts ticking up immediately, it's not like there's a host of 2-drops that are suddenly going to be unleashed once he gets to that second counter. He also has the 2 Plains in hand, so his mana development not going to be an issue. He knows that he's not going to need that wasteland to cast his spells moving forward. So yeah, you're stunting your own growth a little, but you know that you don't have a ton coming in terms of what you already have in hand.
Yeah, I always find it like really interesting because some players, and I think of Todd Anderson the most, he wastelands aggressively.
Sure.
He is just in your face wasteland, hope you don't have a land a lot of the time, and obviously it's worked out for him quite a bit over the history of him playing in the Open Series. He has the most Open Series top 8s of all time. Some other players like to play it a lot more cautiously and, develop a little bit and then fire off Wastelands in the mid to late game afterwards. So you see Paul just firing off Wastelands right away here on turn 1 and turn 2.
Yeah, I am definitely in the latter camp there. Sure. I find that often players, they look at a card like Wasteland and think that if they get to play Wasteland and use it very early, then they get a free pass and they don't have to play Magic this round. I think that's a pipe dream. It has been for a while. People are playing more lands generally as the format has progressed. I know 3 and 4 years ago, people were just playing not enough land across the board.
People were skimping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of 18 land legacy decks. I remember that. You see an attack here for 1 from the Baleful Strix. Rietzl's going to go down to 19. A polluted Delta here from Phimus. He's going to go down to 16. We'll see what he's going to search up and then presumably play on this turn.
Yeah, True Name Nemesis, again, a 4 of in Phimus's deck. That would be quite the card here.
Looks like he's going to go for a Bayou, so that's going to come into play. Does have his green mana now, and we'll see if he does have True Name Nemesis to play on this particular turn. A card that, oddly enough, is not really, doesn't seem like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, circulating at the high tables this particular tournament.
It really isn't. Honestly, the most played deck, I did a survey around, I believe it was round 5. So I was looking at the 4-0 players.
Okay.
There were 20 of them total, 20 undefeated players. The most played deck of that group was Jund.
Okay.
5 of the 20 playing Jund, which surprised me. Other than that, we have seen a decent amount of Blue, White, Red, a decent amount of Bug of various flavors. Some of those Bug decks not actually playing True Name Nemesis. But no, I would say that True Name Nemesis being reasonably represented.
Okay.
It's definitely a presence. it was probably in that subsection in maybe 20% of the decks.
Okay. You see Paul just going to play Karakas past the turn back. We've seen Rietzl use Karakas to defend his Thalia before. So we'll see if that does happen. His Fan is going to untap his lands. He does have a Brainstorm, but he's going to start by attacking here with True Nemesis and Deathrite Shaman. Swords to Plowshares will take care of, I said Deathrite Shaman, I meant Baleful Strix.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to die to the Swords to Plowshares.
That is not the most effective use of a Swords to Plowshares.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Yeah. Phimus, is not actually going to be able to get that Thalia off the board, barring something like a Marsh Casualties or something like that.
There is Deathrite Shaman now. You saw Baleful Strix into that. Baleful Strix cantrip was a Wasteland, which Phimus can play. He's just going to pass the turn back. Vile's going to tap, 2-drop coming in. It's a Phyrexian Revoker. Shaman, you are locked down.
Yeah, Phyrexian Revoker does actually turn off mana abilities. So Deathrite Shaman, it's a 1/2. None of its abilities in play currently.
See what Rietzl's able to find this turn. He is cardless, but he is attacking.
This is a Thalia with Virtual Vigilance. Should Paul choose, he can bounce it to his hand. Actually, I said that. He cannot stick it back into play. He upticked his Aether Vial.
Yeah, it's up to 3 now, so the fact that he could bounce it and the Vial back in, that plays off the line. But by him taking that up to 3, that means that he's looking for very specific cards at this point, which are cards like, we saw him use Mirran Crusader to great effect when we watched him a little bit earlier. He also has Flicker Wisp in his deck, so.
Yeah, Paul has 3 Flicker Wisp in the main. He has 1 Mirran Crusader main, another in the board. I suspect he brought it in. And 1 Aven Mind Sensor. So looks like 6 3-drops total. Sorry, 1 Primaz, so 7 total.
An attack here from Phimus is going to put Rietzl down 4 less life. Looks like he's going to move down to 12. Looks like Rietzl moved that Vial up to 4. Is there 4?
Yeah, there's 2 Whitley Fleege.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Yeah, there is not a 4 in the main deck, but yeah, post board, of all the cards in Rietzl's board, the 2 that he absolutely certainly brought in, the 2 Whitley Fleege.
I wonder if he's giving away info by doing that.
I mean, I think Phimus has to assume it's coming, although not every list actually has access to Whitley Fleege. So he is giving away the info that it was in his 75.
Okay. Here comes some attacks from Paul. Pretty safe ones due to Mother of Runes, of course.
Having said that, he actually, in the face of this Umasawa's Jite, which is going to connect next turn, he is actually kind of bluffing Whitley Fleege in a sense.
Yeah. Equipped to True Nemesis, that's probably the best creature to equip that Jite to. Rietzl, looking at that card, Source of Plowshare is going to take care of Baleful Strix, but there are much larger problems at hand here.
Oh yeah, the Jite, it's a 1-of in Phimus' deck, and it's actually a 1-of in his sideboard. We saw last round Paul Rietzl just completely destroyed by an opposing Jite on True Name, and it is looking to be just as effective here.
Probably going to use his Mother of Runes on the way out, give it a protection from a color. Probably black or green because of Abrupt Decay. Either way, it's not going to matter a ton. Pan just going to pass the turn back over to Rietzl, who will untap. He's going to take Vial up to 5. Is there a 5?
Okay, now 5, I've got nothing.
All right.
I do not believe there is a 5.
I like it.
Let me double check. But
any Cloud Goat Rangers in there?
That would be you wish there was a Cloud Goat Ranger in here.
You're right, I do.
Yeah.
We would still lose, but I do wish there was one in there.
We would lose with style.
Yes.
Okay. So Paul is going to consider his options, realize there are no good ones.
Conceded because he didn't draw the 5. I know why.
Okay.
I see. He's playing them. That's what he's doing.
That's fair.
We are tied up here. Death and Taxes, Bug Control. We'll be going to a 3rd game here momentarily. What else have we seen out there? It looks like we've got a lot more 12 post than expected.
And by a lot more than expected, what you mean is we saw a guy playing it.
Yeah, greater than 1.
Yeah.
Greater than 1,
yes,
yeah.
that is accurate. There was one player. It was John Casare, kind of a local hero.
Yep.
And he did rather well with it. Started 7-0.
Okay.
So yeah, that kind of emerged early as something that I saw that looked really cool. I wanted to get it on camera like every round, honestly, but there was always just like that one match that might have been a little better.
Sure.
So unfortunately, no camera time so far for John Casare, but he, as we've said, is going to draw into the top 8.
Yeah.
So
Drew with Jacob Corey.
Yeah.
So.
We will get him for you guys yet.
Yeah, he's posting up with his deck. I took a brief look at it. Just the Cloud Post, Glimmer Post. He's got a small white splash on the sideboard, but he said, I'm mono green Cloud Post. He's got a little dabble into snow-covered lands. He has mono snow-covered forest and then a Dark Depths that he can into the north for.
Yeah, I took a look as well. I was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, me too. There's some sweet brews today. So
yeah, there is. We had the Greg Hatch deck I don't know how else to describe that.
There is no other way.
Yeah, we had the Greg Hatch deck. If you guys missed that, that's a shame. But we had that. We have Jonathan Job playing Food Chain Combo, potentially still live for top 8. Other than that, we have seen actually at the top tables. Well, when I say we, I have seen. You guys have not actually seen it here in the booth, but there was a manaless Dredge deck that started 5-0.
Okay.
Next door to that, there was a not manaless. This is a more traditional Dredge deck.
Okay.
That deck started strong, is actually still strong. It is in the hands of Michael Boland, currently on our backup camera match. So he is sitting directly next door to either Paul or Phimus right now. In addition to that, we have a Reanimator deck, actually also currently playing a win and in.
People moving back to the graveyards, it sounds like a little bit here. You know, one of the things that's happened over, season 1 here of the Open Series, all of the stops that we have made, we started in Indy, go to Orlando, go to Columbus after that. Everywhere that we've gone, we have not seen much Dredge yet. And normally what happens is, Dredge wins the week where you don't expect it to win because we don't really ever expect it to win. But then when you look at like the top 8s of the decks, it's just like, oh, no one has Graveyard 8, so Dredge wins.
Sure.
But that has not been the case so far. I don't know if that's a result of just Deathrite Shaman just being so good and such splash damage, or if just people just aren't playing Dredge.
Well, it's a bit of both, I think. Some decks started to emerge that just happened to be very good against Dredge. The Delver decks, like Rug Delver, for example, was always actually pretty decent against Dredge, just on the back of things like Spell Pierce and Force of Will.
Sure.
And those decks have kind of fallen by the wayside and been replaced by Bug Delver, which has access to Deathrite Shaman, in addition to everything that was already good.
Yes.
And Blue-White-Red Delver, which gets to board in 4 Rest in Peace.
That's true.
That's a nice one.
Yes.
So Dredge was kind of being preyed on there. We have seen some success lately with graveyard strategies. Tommy Graves, former roommate of mine, actually.
Yeah.
One of my friends from back home in Louisville. He actually won I believe it was the Columbus.
He did win the Columbus Open, defeated Adam Franze in the finals. Yes. Sneak and Show.
Playing Reanimator.
Yep.
So that was the last showing for a graveyard deck. Looks like Phimus going to lead off with Thoughtseize. And we see...
It's got a Thalia, 2 Wastelands, and a Port.
Yes. And a Mother of Runes already in play.
Yep. So that subset of spells, you can just go ahead and lock those off. Now this is the big question here, because Rietzl has the option to just play like a land and Thalia, or he can just wasteland him right now.
Yeah, I suspect he will go for the Thalia, because Thalia actually is sort of like a wasteland here.
Okay.
When you're wasting, you're looking to turn off a 2-drop play. The ones that he's really afraid of here, things like, well, Abrupt Decay doesn't do anything, but Golgari Charm, one of the more problematic ones. Umezawa's Jitte, which he saw in Game 2. What he actually has to worry about is something like Marsh Casualties. That's not really a card that I would guess is on his radar, but yeah. So Thalia basically going to turn off anything other than something like Baleful Strix, which looks like is what's coming.
Baleful Strix is in the house.
Yeah. Now Paul has a first striker in play and a Mother of Runes anyway, so I don't think he particularly cares about Baleful Strix.
Wouldn't be surprised if he just goes firing away at lands right now. So he's going to start by attacking with Thalia.
Yeah. Now that he has his clock in play, I like double Wasteland a lot, actually.
1, 2.
Get out.
Yep, that's what looks like it might be happening here. So Rietzl has a Thalia, which is making spells obviously very expensive, Mother Runes to defend it, and a Plains in play, but he has a land advantage. Pan, all he has is a Baleful Strix, and he's got some cleanup work to do now. Deathrite Shaman's certainly a good start.
Yeah, he drew, I believe, a Creeping Tar Pit, which is not going to do much work against the Rishadan Port that we know is in Paul's hand.
That always begs the question too, like, you have the option of just double wastelanding, or the option of like playing a port, using your port and then wastelanding, so that you already have the port in play, and then you have more lands in play overall. Because like if he plays a port and ports and then wastelands him, he has 2 lands. Next turn he can play a land and go into 3 lands, maybe play a 3-mana spell that he draws instead of affecting his mana. Right now, if he were to draw a 3-mana spell, Mirror Crusader, Bramaz, Flicker Wisp, whatever, he wouldn't be able to cast it.
Sure. Against Rishadan Port, you do run the risk of being exposed sometimes to instant speed spells.
That's true.
The longer that Paul lets Phimus sit with lands in play, the more likely he is to get blown out by something like an upkeep Golgari Charm.
Yeah, it's true. A port going to tap down, or at least try to, Tropical Island. That'll work. Phimus will draw an Underground Sea, so lands aren't really a huge issue. He's obviously behind a little bit. The clock isn't too fast for Paul right now.
It's not too fast, but it exists.
Yes.
And that's the most important thing. That's step 1. It exists, and it's not going anywhere because Mother of Runes Paul did get to untap with Mother of Runes in play.
Mother of Runes did what Mother Rune does, which is if you untap with it, you're good to go.
Yeah. I said it's not going anywhere. Again, as we know, Phimus actually has access to several ways to break that lockup in the form of Marsh Casualties, Golgari Charm, Dread of Night, the big one of, and that's actually, of those, that's the only one that Phimus can currently play. Sorry, actually, Deathrite Shaman can make mana, so he can cast any of them.
Thought comes across for 2 more. Phimus is going to go down to 10. There's another port.
Paul would, as you said, Paul would really like to develop his clock a little faster here. A Stoneforge Mystic would be fantastic here. Just anything that attacks would be good.
And I think right now he's weighing the decision of, okay, I can cast like an Aven Mind Sensor, or I can go porting, or I can do this, or I can do that. He's taking a look at his hand now.
Yeah, Aven Mind Sensor would not be that great here, actually, against a 1/1 flyer. And most of the 3-drop threats that Paul would like here, he can't cast. He can't cast Bremons, he can't cast Flicker Wisp, he can't cast Mirror Crusader.
This is interesting to me. I wasn't sure if Paul was going to activate or not. Oh, at the port, and he chose not to.
Okay, so we think he probably is representing Aven Mind Sensor then?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure he has a Mind Sensor in his hand. He's also representing, obviously, Swords of Plowshares. There's a couple different things that he's doing right now.
Yeah. Phimus drew Umezawa's Jite. Again, a mighty one of. He does have the flyer, so he, on board, can see that he can connect with it. There is that Aven Mind Sensor that would trade off, but Jite would still get some counters in that case.
Here's an attack for 1. So Rietzl is going to go down to 18, pass the turn back. Now he's going to slide Mind Sensor now. This might draw some sort of responses for Phimus, depends on what he has. 3 mana. Yes, sir.
That's a big one.
Yep. There goes the board.
And as I said, this was something that you were always risking. Paul went for the Wastelands early to try and lock Phimus out of this possibility as best he could. Phimus drew plenty of lands, so that was not anything that Paul could control.
And the clock just not big enough. So now Rietzl has a Sword of Fire and Ice. He's got a Flicker Wisp and a Sarah Avenger.
Neither of which he can cast.
Yep. Just play this and pass the turn back. Phimus going to untap. In a pretty healthy spot right now. That's going to make things a lot better. True Name Nemesis has shown up, and Phimus has drawn his 1 of Jite again. So the old combo of True Name plus Jite is going to be put on pause right now because Deathrite Shaman's actually going to be the tough guy. He'll get in there. He'll wear the equipment. 2 counters on that.
Yeah, I like that play. As long as, Phimus is in a hurry, in a sense, to get counters on the Jite. As long as the Jite sits with counters on it, Paul cannot play a creature and equip.
Unless it's Sarah Avenger.
True. Okay.
Don't forget about that.
Sure. So that is the Sarah Avengers, which Paul has 2 of. Some lists play 3, some lists don't play any.
Yeah.
And the Bremons, which Paul has 1 of.
Yeah.
But very, very few creatures in Paul's deck in particular, but in Death and Taxes broadly, that can stick and equip through that Jite.
Of course, we know Paul's hand, so he's going to come down with Sarah Avenger and he's going to equip this. So the last card in his hand, I believe, is a Flick Wisp right now. So that's a 5/5 Sarah Avenger. The question here is, does Phimus have anything to get that sword off the table? A card like Abrupt Decay blows this all up.
Dread of Night does it.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Dread of Night in conjunction with a Deathrite Shaman attack will give 4 counters on, plus the -1/-1 from Dread of Night. That's a 5/5 Sarah Avenger. Not big enough.
Wow, that's a rough beat there. But hey, you put those cards in your deck so you can draw them.
That is true.
That's the truth here.
Looks like Phimus is considering just playing True Name Nemesis instead.
I was surprised by that.
Phimus needs a clock as well. Paul does sit at 17, so Phimus does have some work.
He's
going to
cast. This is an Abrupt Decay.
Oh, okay. Sure, yeah.
Kill Sarah Avenger.
Yeah,
Okay,
we didn't see that one.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, was not worried at all about the incoming 5/5.
Aha! Oh, Sarah Avenger for Paul.
Okay, so Paul is likely going to spend his turn replacing his Sarah Avenger with the one he just drew and re-equipping, and Phimus still has that Dread of Night.
Yeah, and he's just going to concede the game knowing that he's beat because he can't beat True Name plus Jite.
True.
So even if he does just make the play of, okay, play my Sarah Avenger, equip it, the problem is like he can't ever beat True Name plus Jite. Paul doesn't have, I mean, Phimus doesn't actually have to do anything. He just equips it and he can gain 2 life a turn or whatever. And he's still good to go. So Rietzl extends the hand, and Phimus Pan is going to win the match. 2-1. Bug Control defeats Death and Taxes, and for the future Hall of Famer, Paul Rietzl, he has lost both his win-ins this weekend.
Yeah, well, and lost 2 in a row today, actually. Started 6-0.
Yeah.
Started 6-0, ran afoul of True Names and Jittes in the consecutive rounds, and sent home packing.
Yeah, True Name is obviously a problem for Death and Taxes, and I think you know that better than anybody because you have tried and tried and tried to fix the problem, but there's not a great way to do it.